Good evening. What a day it has been here in Washington, and it's certainly not over. We have breaking news. Attorney General William Barr is refusing to testify tomorrow before the House Judiciary Committee after what was a heated Senate hearing today on his handling of the Mueller report. It lasted nearly 4 hours, contentious at times. Highlights of that in a moment. But first, I want to go to CNN's Pamela Brown at the White House with the breaking news about tomorrow's sudden reversal. So what happened, Pamela?
Well, Anderson, Attorney General Barr is taking this unusual step of declining an invitation to testify before the House Judiciary Committee tomorrow morning, raising tensions even more with House Democrats. And this move follows a dispute over the proposed format for this hearing, with Democrats demanding that Barr face questions from committee's lawyers. This was a decision formalized by a vote today. Now, a Justice Department spokeswoman released a statement saying the committee's demands are, quote, unprecedented and unnecessary. And on the other hand, the committee's chairman, Jerry Nadler, says the administration is trying to dictate the terms of the hearing on the committee's turf, and he's now threatening to subpoena Barr and hold him in contempt. But Barr's rejection, Anderson, follows a defiant and unapologetic performance today on Capitol Hill, where we saw him getting grilled by Democrats over his handling of the Mueller report. Anderson.
Has there been any reaction from the White House about the refusal of Barr tomorrow, and also what White House officials thought of his testimony today?
Well, I just spoke to a senior administration official here who said the White House was leaving it up to Bill Barr to make this decision, and he's made it. And this official said the House conditions are what prompted him to decline that invite, and said the House should be more reasonable. So clearly the White House doesn't have a big issue with Barr declining. But overall, officials here have been praising Barr's performance today, with President Trump saying he was solid, that he did a great job in a recent radio interview. And the White House officials are criticizing Democrats, with one official telling me that the Democrats didn't lay a glove on Barr. And officials, Anderson, here at the White House are even shrugging off Barr, saying that he didn't exonerate President Trump. But when I first heard that, I thought perhaps there might be a negative reaction here, because we hear President Trump say continually that this was total exoneration. But here at the White House, the view is that in late terms, Barr did exonerate him, but he made it clear today that he didn't view his role as a prosecutor from a legal perspective, to put it that way. Anderson?
All right, Pamela, thanks very much. Pamela Brown. More now on the hearing that did take place today. Mr. Barr had to do a lot of explaining before the Republican-led Senate Judiciary Committee. Democrats zeroed in on the letter by Mueller to Barr that we learned about first last night, warning him he was not fully capturing the context, nature, and substance in his four-page memo, Barr's four-page memo, which was released March 24th. Well, 3 days later, Mueller wrote that letter. Then on April 9th and 10th, Barr was on Capitol Hill and was asked specifically if Mueller was on board with his summary. Barr made no mention of the letter or phone call he had with Mueller about his concerns. That is not sitting well with Democrats, who now accuse Barr of misleading and even lying to Congress. So with that as the backdrop, here are some of the key moments from Barr's testimony today.
Why did you say you were not aware of concerns when weeks before your testimony, Mr. Mueller had expressed concerns to you? I mean, that's a fairly simple.
Well, I answered a question, and the question was relating to unidentified members who were expressing frustration over the accuracy relating to findings. I don't know what that refers to at all. I talked directly to Bob Mueller, not members of his team.
Mr. Barr, I feel your answer was purposely misleading, and I think others do too.
When did you decide to make that letter available to us in Congress?
This morning.
Would you concede that you had an opportunity to make this letter public on April 4th when Representative Christ asked you a very related question?
I don't know what you mean by related question. It seems to me to be a very different question.
I can't even follow that down the road. Boy, that's some masterful hair splitting.
I want to ask you whether on those remaining investigations, the 12 to 14 investigations, whether you have had any communication with anyone in the White House.
No.
And will you give us an ironclad commitment that you will in no way interfere?
By the way, I'm not sure, the laundry list of investigations, but I certainly haven't talked the substance or been directed to do anything on any of the cases.
Well, let me give you an opportunity to clarify.
Yeah.
Have you had any conversations with anyone in the White House about those ongoing investigations that were spawned or spun off by...
I don't recall having any substantive discussion on the investigation.
Have you had any non-substantive discussion?
I mean, it's possible that a name of a case was mentioned. I didn't exonerate. I said that we did not believe that there was sufficient evidence to establish an obstruction offense, which is the job of the Justice Department. And the job of the Justice Department is now over. I don't consider Bob at this stage a career prosecutor. He's had a career as a prosecutor.
Well, he's a very eminent
prosecutor. He was the head of the FBI for 12 years.
He's a career
He's had a
law enforcement professional.
Right.
Yep.
I know of no other instance of...
But he was also a political appointee, and he was a political appointee with me at the Department of Justice. The letter's a bit snitty, and I think it was probably written by one of his staff people.
Why not call for Mueller to testify?
Because I'm not going to do any more. Enough already. It's over. If there's any dispute about a conversation, then he'll come. But I'm not going to retry the case. I'm not calling McCann. It is over.
Well, quite a day on Capitol Hill. Now, earlier I spoke with one of the senators grilling the Attorney General today, Senator Kamala Harris, who is also a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate. I mean, watching this today, I mean, it was a tale of two committee hearings. I mean, the Republicans were focused on one thing, Democrats obviously focused on another. At the end of it, you said he should resign. Why?
I just think that he has compromised his position in a way that it leaves the American public believing that he is not bringing in integrity to the role.
You think he's lying?
I think he's intentionally misleading. I think he's intentionally mischaracterizing the facts and his perspective and the evidence to the extent he's reviewed the evidence.
I mean, the idea, he had previously said that he didn't know what Mueller thought of his conclusions. We now know very clearly he had already received that letter in which Mueller's quite clear about his conclusions.
That's right. And he testified before the United States Congress, both to my colleague and on the House side to Christ, Congressman Christ, and basically he knew what the question was asking, which is, was Mueller content with what you did? And he suggested that Mueller was content. And I think that we have to recognize that when you go before, Chris Van Hollen on the Senate, when you go before Charlie Crist on the House side, and they are representing the American public and asking questions of the American Attorney General of the United States, right? This is our Attorney General. This is not the Attorney General of the President. It is the people's Attorney General. And the Attorney General has a responsibility to do the work of justice. And that means to be unbiased, to be straightforward, to be honest, to be truthful. And we've not seen evidence of that kind of perspective from this Attorney General, at least on this issue.
One of the exchanges, I want to play that for our viewers, because you were asking him if he had taken the time to look at the underlying evidence that Mueller presented before deciding no obstruction.
Right.
Let's take a look.
Did you personally review all of the underlying evidence?
No, we took and we accepted
Mr. Rosenstein?
No, we accepted the statements in the report as the factual record. We did not go underneath it to see whether or not they were accurate. We accepted it as accurate and made our.
So you accepted the report as the evidence?
Yes.
You did not question or look at the underlying evidence that supports the conclusions in the report?
No.
Did Mr. Rosenstein review the evidence that underlines and supports the conclusions in the report, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
I mean, that's surprising.
And Anderson, I went on to ask, did anyone in your executive staff review the evidence? Because let's just be very clear. It says it on the front page on the cover of the report. It is a report. It is not the evidence. It is a report that basically summarizes an investigation. And any prosecutor worth her salt reviews the evidence before making a charging decision involving a matter of such magnitude as the matter before this Attorney General, which is whether the President of the United States engaged in the obstruction of justice. How can you, as the Attorney General, knowing the seriousness of the words you will speak on this matter, knowing the seriousness of the consequence of your action on this matter, not review the evidence, or at least with those closest to you, make sure they review the evidence before you put your name on a decision?
There was another exchange you had that I want to play because it's an important one for our viewers.
Has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir?
The president or anybody else?
Seems you would remember something like that and be able to tell us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to grapple with the word suggest. I mean, there have been discussions of matters out there that they have not asked me to open an investigation, but
Perhaps they've suggested,
I don't know. I wouldn't say suggest.
hinted,
I don't know.
inferred. You don't know. Okay.
Again, hard to believe. I mean, he's only been in the job for a while, so it's not as if there's a long number of possible times he's been in contact with the White. I mean, he hasn't been there for years for him to review through.
Correct.
You would think he would know this.
Well, I think that there is an additional point, which is he is an intelligent person. He has evidenced his ability to understand and be a master, frankly, with the English language. He parses his words. He's very careful in the words he chooses to speak. So clearly he comprehends the language at a very high level. And when then asked about something as serious as whether the president has asked him to investigate anyone, he, one, understands the language being spoken. He understands the nature of the question. And he should understand, given his history of connection with our justice system, understand the seriousness of a president of the United States asking his attorney general to investigate anyone. But yet he stuttered.
And at no point did he say no.
Correct.
He just.
You
I
are
mean,
correct.
again, it's the bottom line is I don't remember. I don't recall.
You are correct. And on a subject such as that, one should not be equivocal.
Just a political question. You know, you're out on the campaign trail. You're running for the Democratic nomination for president. Are people asking you and talking to you about this? Because there are plenty of Democrats who are very concerned for all the candidates who are running and you know, Congress people who aren't running and are just concerned that this is going to suck up a lot of time and a lot of energy by Democrats and might play against Democrats. That anytime you're not talking about, you know, improving the economy, anytime you're not talking about health care, anytime you're not talking about jobs, anytime you're not talking about criminal justice reform, whatever it is time, you know, that you're focused on this, and do voters actually care?
I think voters do care, and I'll tell you why. I mean, and certainly there's no question that the issues that keep them up at night are going to be, and are, can they pay the bills by the end of the month? Can they keep a job? Can they retire with dignity? The health of themselves or their children or parents? Those are their priorities. There's no question. But on this issue, I will say this. Traveling the country as I have, there are a lot of people in our country who are feeling a great sense of distrust in their government, its institutions, and leaders. And certainly we know Russia tried to play on that in terms of their interference in the 2016 election. So what I would say, Anderson, is that one of the things that is very much at play and very present at this moment in time in our country is a concern about whether or not our democracy is intact, whether it can be trusted, whether the leaders in our democracy can be trusted. And this issue is symbolic and actually a litmus test on whether our democracy is intact, whether our institutions are functioning as they could, co-equal branches of government, people who have independent responsibilities. And on this case, it's about whether the Attorney General is fulfilling his responsibility to the people of our country.
Senator Harris, appreciate your time.
Thank you.